in, that means you're feeling the vibe. The bell rung, you already been subscribed. Right now, the queen, she on live. Right now, please pull over the whip, no phoning when you drive. Dope Soul Sporting with the talk. First lady from New York, Brooklyn. All my people, you rocking with the chat. Hit that. That like button would tell me where you at. You know, step from the MBK. Born and raised up MBK. Hey, real lady, where she holding it down. No matter way how you feel, she gon' greet you with a smile.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope Soul.
What?
Dope Soul.
What?
Your soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Hello, Knick family. Welcome to the Just Knickin' It weekly show. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen. This is the show where me and the panel, we're just fans, talk about the storylines as they relate to our New York Knicks over the past week. No overproduction, no slides, just Knick fans kicking it, or as I like to say, nicking it. So think proverbial hair salon, barbershop, where you're just sitting around talking Knicks. That's what we do on the weekly show. Today we're talking Jalen Brunson's captaincy. We're talking about the Knicks. The Knicks had two press conferences in the past month. Does that mean the Knicks are now more media friendly? Will we get a state of the Knicks address prior to the season? Let's see. We'll also talk about Jalen Brunson's role, if there'll be any changes. Julius Randle is coming back. Mikal Bridges is on the team now. OG Anunoby is offense is emerging. Does that mean Jalen Brunson's role should or could change, where he becomes more of a facilitator than a scorer? And would that be better for the Knicks? So we'll talk about that as well. The Knicks and the entire NBA preseason schedule was either released or leaked. Either one, we have it, and we'll talk about it. Let's bring in Ajay and Geoff. How you guys doing? Shout out to the chat, by the way.
Salute to you, Queen and Geoff. Always a pleasure to be here, hanging out with you guys, talking the Knicks and talking basketball.
Yes.
No.
Off-season basketball.
Yeah.
It's been a slow grind. I can't wait for the season to start.
Not too long now.
It's the Knicks. There's always something to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though there's other stuff going on. Shout out to congratulations to Team USA, both Team USAs, the men and the women, for winning the gold.
Yeah.
So shout out to them for that. So there was some hoops going on, and it's interesting. And I don't want to start with the Olympics, but it's interesting to see how the world, it has, there are a lot of good players around the world. You watch some of those games, and some of those guys are really beasting, man. Hey, a lot of them are playing in the NBA, but some of them that are unknown to us NBA fans. Some of those guys can ball.
Yeah.
It's really cool, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, if there's been some discussion on sports radio whether or not this team can beat the dream team. So if we have a time at the end, we'll dive into that a little bit.
Yep.
Geoff, how's it going with you?
Going great. Thanks for having me. Salute to the chat. It feels like it's been a month of Sundays since we've done this. I know it's not, but it feels like it's been a minute. So it's great to be back, and it's great to talk about this team that drives us crazy, but we love it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going twice this week for whoever's available. No pressure. We didn't go last week Thursday, so we're going to go today and Thursday. If you guys are available, if not, I'm gonna make it work. Let's start off with Jalen Brunson being named the 36th captain of the New York Knicks, the first captain, if I'm not mistaken, since the 2018-2019 season when Lance Thomas was named the captain. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that it's mostly ceremonial? How significant is it? And just your overall thoughts on it. Geoff, we'll start with you, and then Ajay, and then we'll switch it the next time around.
I actually do think it's significant, and it's significant in the fact the kind of player that he is. I mean, no disrespect meant to Lance Thomas, but Lance Thomas was not a good basketball player, especially the season that he was captain for the Knicks. So it was almost emblematic of where we were at as a franchise, that would be the player that would have the C on his chest. But now, in the tradition of Patrick Ewing and Earl Monroe and Clyde Frazier and Willis Reed, that's the kind of captain that we have now. Jalen Brunson is one of the elite players in this league, and it's an honor that he's more than worthy of, and it's a testament to the hard work that he's put in, and really just the video with Patrick Ewing and saying that you weren't just born to play basketball, you were born to play for the New York Knicks. It's almost like a passing of the torch. And for the three of us, and I know most of the people who listen to this show, those are the Knicks that we grew up on. Those are the Knicks that we remember, were those 90s teams. And Patrick's teams always made the second round of the playoffs, or it was an expectation at any rate. And we were almost always there, except maybe one or two seasons. And it was just, we never got over the hump because of Michael Jordan and the Bulls and the Miami Heat and craziness and things that happened. But it was a great time to be a Knick fan. I mean, we were always competitive. We were the talk of the town. It was always something to really look forward to. And Jalen Brunson just epitomizes that to me. I think, you see, since he's been here, we've been to the second round of the playoffs both years. And I think we have more talent coming in this year than even last year with the addition of Mikal Bridges, with no disrespect meant to Isaiah Hartenstein, by the way. I mean, I think that he's a fantastic player, but the addition of Bridges, I mean, the wing stop defense, the capabilities on offense is not like anything we've ever seen. So I think it's perfect. I think Brunson deserves it, and I just think I don't want to go on too long because I want to save a little bit for Ajay and for you to talk about. But I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Ajay.
Yeah, and shout out to the chat queen, and shout out to you and Jeff again. I always like to say that, and thank Jeff for leaving a little meat on the bones, as Queen would like to say. But I 100% agree with him, and I think the only thing I'm going to add is mentally, it's almost like it gives the player like an extra motivation to be the leader, right? Not that he needed it, because we've seen, we kind of familiarize ourselves with his work ethic and the team. Like, they know what he does, what Jalen Brunson does, but it kind of gives him like a little extra oomph, to be the leader, to guide the ship, and and I think it also tells the other guys that, you're not out there just out there. There's a structure, there's a team structure, kind of, how do I say this? Kind of make everybody accountable. Okay. So, in other words, when something goes wrong, there's like a middle ground where you could talk to the captain before going to Tibbs. There's like a link, like a bridge in between. It's almost like a coach on the floor with the guys.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they would listen to him more because he has that title, that authority. It was given to him by the team. So it adds a little extra. And I think that can only help the team, because we know Jalen Brunson, ultimately he wants to win. So if the team could follow that leadership, then we're in excellent shape. So
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I agree with both of you. I'm not sure I have much to add. I'm curious how Julius feels about this. I'm just curious. I know he came out immediately in support of Jalen Brunson, that he deserves it. But he was here, and he was the start of it, and it's been pretty much Team Brunson, since he's been here. I mean, obviously we don't know we don't know the answer to it, but I'm just always curious about how Julius Randle is dealing with this, because he wasn't just named captain. It was a lot of pomp and circumstance around the captainship, right? We had the Patrick Ewing video. We had a press conference, the second press conference in a month's time, because Mikal Bridges had a press conference as well. Then there was another video of New York athletes, I believe, saying their piece. Now, did the Knicks put that out, or was that a content creator that got that together? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
Okay. So then there was that video as well, and then there was another video of his teammates also saluting him. Now, I don't know. That could have just been, a content, creator, putting the clips together and putting it on Twitter. But what's your thoughts on the Knicks 2 press conferences in a month? Do you think the Knicks are becoming more media friendly, changing their media policy in terms of access to the Knicks? Do you think we'll get a state of the Knicks address now at the beginning and end of the season? I mean, the Knicks are in a good way right now. And it's kind of easier to be open, media wise, when you're on the right track and there's not a lot to criticize you about. But your thought, Ajay, do you think that this is a shift in terms of the Knicks' relationship with the media?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be the same. I mean, I think their policy is to keep the media at bay, just give them as little as possible. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasoning for that, but one of them is they're able to operate not in secrecy, but privately, and not have stuff like they're more able to control the narrative, and which is what you want to do when you run an organization like that. Sometimes I mean, not that it hurts team, but it kind of gets in the way. The media gets in the way when they put stuff out before you want it out, or certain things, like for instance, and we want to go back to what the last offseason with the Donovan Mitchell. Maybe the deal would have happened if the media was not all in every day, taking a pulse and trying to find out, right? The media had no idea Cleveland was even in the game. And guess what happened? He got traded to Cleveland. So sometimes maybe it's best to keep the media out of it until you're ready to pull the trigger, and then, you put it out there. Maybe they feel more comfortable operating that way. And I think they've been very successful in doing that. I mean, listen, the numbers speak for themselves, right? The results, we see what the result is. They make moves, and sometimes they haven't made all 100% great moves. They made bad moves. But for every one of them, they keep the media at a distance, and they're able to operate better. So, no, I don't think it's going to make a difference. Oh, you're muted?
Geoff, and then we'll check in with the chat.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jay. I think that the Knicks love-hate relationship with the media, where we love to hate them, is going to continue. I just think that I think it comes from the top down. I think James Dolan isn't a fan of the media and how they portray him, and for various reasons. And some of that is worthy, some of it is not. However you feel about it, it is what it is. And so I think he'd much rather be able to, as Ajay said, control the narratives as much as possible. Mm-hmm. It's easier for them to do stuff like this, as you said, when winning cures everything, and it's tough to be hypercritical when it looks like we have a contender. But I mean, if we get off to a slow start, the Sharks are going to be circling again, and the waters. New York media is the toughest there is. This is not like being the Oklahoma City media or some of these other markets. Like, I mean, even the Nets are in the New York market, but the coverage of Brooklyn is not the same as the coverage of the Knicks, and everything is scrutinized because it gets clicks. Like, we're such a passionate fan base. You can write a hit piece on the Knicks, and it may be a valid hit piece. And look, we haven't won the championship in my lifetime, so a lot of that stuff is valid, and it may get me mad, but till you win, like really legitimately win, that's the only thing that shuts everybody up. Otherwise, like, they're justified the last 20 years saying that we were a clown show because, we were. I mean, look at the rosters that we built. Look at the moves that we made. Look at the results on the court. We were one of the worst teams in the NBA for a long time, and that they reported because that's what it was. And there, it's easy for them to laugh and poke fun at that. And look, you just have to take it because it's true. But it's not true anymore, and so you still kind of get some of that residual negativity just because, again, Knicks for clicks is a popular thing, and you have the Stephen A. Smiths of the world and those sorts of things. So I think you're always going to have that just because there are so many Knicks fans, and Knicks Nation is just so large, and there's just so many. Like, we're all starved for content. Like that's what makes this show possible, is we've got all these great fans who want to tune in and talk about this basketball team. I think that it's a deeper fan base than any out there, and including like the Lakers and the Sixers, and there are a lot of historic teams. There are a lot of great teams, but Knicks fans are unique in their size and passion, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Queen, I'm going to add a couple of things too. Following up, continuing what Geoff is saying, the way the fan base is, right, with the Knicks for click, that kind of play to the aura. Like it's almost like the Knicks is, at this point with this front office, it's almost like not an enigma, but very secretive, right? And because of that, the Knicks for clicks work. So even when the Knicks do nothing, they talk about the Knicks a lot because people are coming up with all crazy stuff, because they're not talking to the media. That generates all these things, all these people coming up with all these topics and creating all this puzzle around the Knicks. Is because they don't talk to the media. If they were like an open book with the media, but there'd be nothing to talk about. Like, everybody would know everything, and then it'd be boring. So because of that, it creates that, people starving for Knicks news, and then anything they put out there about the Knicks, it takes off,
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I think another way to look at it is it doesn't really matter, because I think because even if they do press conferences, whatever they put out on it, there's going to be different takes on the content, whatever it is. I'm okay with the Knicks not being media friendly. Like, it didn't really bother me, but I would like to know. Like, I would like to know, what Leon Rose thinks about the direction of the team. At the end of the season, there are many GMs. I don't know if every GM, but many GMs will talk about the past season and what they're looking forward to for the following season. I would like that. I know a lot of times we talk here, we would be able to give more nuanced takes if we knew. Well, we know the Knicks are not trying to go into the luxury tax. So there's certain things we wouldn't even talk about, or that would be a context of, well, we know the Knicks don't want to go over the first apron. I think we're kind of hearing here and there that the Knicks don't want to go over the second apron. That helps us, when we're talking about things. We're like, all right, this probably won't work. Is going to go over the second apron, and we already know that the Knicks don't want to do that. So I think those things would would help us understand the thinking of the front office more, and we could speculate less. But at the end of the day, if they don't, I didn't feel. I know some Knick fans felt really strongly about them not talking to them or not talking to the press. It wasn't that big a deal for me. I do think, though, that this is a shift. There have been plays we've signed no press conference, or a very controlled press conference. So this seems a little different to me. Um, and I'm hoping this is a sign of things to come. But I hear that you guys are not buying it.
Well, let me ask
that
you
you don't
this
think
then.
anything's gonna change.
Let me ask you this. So do you think maybe Jalen Brunson is having an impact? Like, do you think maybe it was a situation where McCall is his guy and he wanted him to get his flowers and have his moment, and so he's like, hey, and that's a leadership thing too, right?
Mhm.
That's part of being a captain, is making sure that your guys get taken care of. So is this a situation where he's saying, look, this is a big part of our franchise going forward. He's one of my Nova boys. I want him to get, his flowers. I want him to have his moment in the sun. I want him to be recognized and respected. And the Knicks just saying, okay, well, we're all in on the Nova 4. We're all in on Brunson. So, what Jalen wants, Jalen gets. Do you think it's a situation of that?
It could be. It could be. I didn't think of it that way. I was thinking that things are going good for the Knicks, so it's just easier to have press conferences because the chances are that you're going to get these negative attacking. No, I wouldn't even say attacking type questions, but these direct questions on what's not going right with the with the Knicks. Um, that's less likely now. I was thinking more along those lines, but yeah, it's definitely possible that Jalen Brunson is having an impact. Um, impact on. He doesn't seem like he's that type of guy though. Um, but again, we don't really know him behind the scenes. Yeah. All right,
Queen,
let's check in with. Go ahead, AJ, and then we'll check in with the chat.
with the chat. Let's go back on that. Do you feel that it's the duty? And I've heard that online several times. Shout out to Josh, Uncle Folio, who kind of feel that it's the front office's duty, like Leon Rose's job to talk to the media to let the fans know. Do you guys agree with that?
I don't know. I think his job is to run the organization and put the best basketball product on the floor that he can. That's my concern. That's what I care about. And I think sometimes when you make information available to the public, you kind of play your hand a little bit and you give out information that, in other words, if XYZ team knows, oh, well, they don't want to go over the second apron, well, that's information that can be useful, when you're dealing with negotiations with that team. So from that standpoint, I'm more worried about the on-court product than I am anything. So if the on-court product is good, to me, he's doing his job. I don't really care if he has a press conference or not. And again, if not good, I think that you kind of have a responsibility to own up to that and answer some questions. But I guess are you allowed to have it both ways there? I don't know. So, but to me, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm kind of with Steph. It doesn't bother me that they don't have press conferences. I mean, I don't think anything truly important is said in that stuff anyway. I think it's kind of like, the classic sports interview. Well, we got a good ball club. They got a good ball club. It's going to be a real tough game kind of stuff. That I don't think anything in these press conferences, I don't think anything earth shattering is shared. So from that standpoint, I don't find much utility in them personally.
Some of them, so it doesn't bother me, but at the same time, I want the Knicks to operate like every other organization operates. And most organizations, if I'm not mistaken, will have press conferences, or even if they don't have, they're just a little more open to the media, even if, to your point, Jeff, it's just coach speak, so to speak. you know? Um, but some, Pat Riley, Bob Myers, when he was with Golden State, they would give useful information that gave you some insight. But you're right, some of them, and I think that's how the Knicks press conferences would have been. Um, a lot of talking and about nothing, a lot of talk about nothing, so to speak. All right, let's check in with the chat. Ajay.
Let's go back. Right. So Ivory 10, shout out to Ivory. Randall is enjoying a pseudo back seat. The talk now is, can a little guy do it, as opposed to can Randall? I think he likes it. Meaning, I guess you think Randall likes it. I think he said as much in his interview last season, last off season when he talked. He said he's actually probably more comfortable being a number 2 guy or a number 3 guy. He does not have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I absolutely agree. I think that we've said on this program a long time that Randall's not your classic number 1. He was the number 1 because we didn't have anybody better, Right. And so I think it's good for him. I think he's more comfortable. I think it makes him a better player. I think he can just focus on going out there and doing the things that he does well, and he doesn't have to worry about, all this other ancillary stuff, which isn't really that stuff isn't really in his wheelhouse. So I think it's a win-win-win all the way around, and I, is there an ego part of it? Maybe. I don't know. I've never seen that from Julius though.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as this statement came up, it took me right back to that interview, Ajay. I think it was with Paul George, if I'm not mistaken. It took me right back to that. So yeah, I think he's enjoying it. I don't think it's tough on him. I don't think this is a situation where in public he's saying all of the right things, but underneath he's seething and really upset over all the attention Brunson is getting, and Brunson being named captain. Yeah.
And the fact that he agreed to it makes it that much easier, for the team. It kind of flows better. You know what I'm saying? So, JJ, I wonder if he feels the well. Salute to JJ, who's always rocking with us, and thanks for being here. I don't. Is it really extra responsibility that he didn't already have? Like, it's
We're
really
talking about Brunson, right?
Yes, we're talking about Brunson being the captain. It's not really an extra load on his shoulders. He was doing that anyway. It's just that they make it official, give him, personally, like a little a sense of like, you guide the ship. But he was already doing that anyway, and the team understood that he was the guy anyway. I don't think on the floor, aside from what I mentioned earlier, him being more like a coach on the floor, like more of, I don't think it changes anything in terms of him feeling. He doesn't feel any extra pressure or any extra responsibility. The point is still to win the game, win every game, as many games as possible, and try to bring a championship here. That doesn't change, I don't think.
I wonder if it's, and many of us may have experienced this, where you're doing the work anyway, and then you finally get the title. But the flip side of that is you're in a relationship for a long time and everything is great. But then once you get married, just that piece of paper changes things a little bit. So is it is it that type of situation for Jalen Brunson, to JJ's point, that he was doing the work, but he has the title now? Does that change things? I don't know. I would guess no.
I don't think so.
But we shall see.
Yeah.
He's so inflappable though, Brunson. Like, I have very rarely seen an athlete who can he reminds me of Derek Jeter, and I don't mean, the Yankee fans will probably like kill me for saying that, but just in his demeanor and the way he carries himself, nothing gets him too high or too low. It's always the next play, the next game, the next series, the next, it's always this continuous, okay, what do we have to do next? Always looking forward to what the team needs to accomplish going forward. It's never about him personally anyway. So I don't think that's a problem, but I also think that that's why I think it's so fitting a title for him, because it's almost like there's some leaders that he doesn't have to say anything because he's just doing it, and so it only makes sense to name him that because that's who he is.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It is what it is, man. It falls right into, like, everything fits and everything flows, no problem. And Tay Cowboys, shout out to you. Like we talked about, we just mentioned about Julius Randle. I don't know if he was dominant on the floor. I don't know if he wanted to be a captain. I don't think he cares. And like, bottom line, I think all these guys are on the same page. Everybody wants to win a championship. They want to bring it home, and they're gonna do what they have to do to do that. So,
and I also think that his teammates love him. I think Julius is highly respected in that locker room, and I think there was a genuine sense that we really missed that guy last year. Like, I don't think it was a situation, oh, Randle's not playing, now we have our chance to shine. I never really got that sense from the team, and even Randle's own reaction was like, I want to be out there with my group. I want to be out there with my crew. You could tell it was like killing him that he had to watch from the sidelines, So I think it's a two-way street, but I actually think this team genuinely likes Julius Randle, and I think his work ethic fits in with how these guys want to play and what they do perfectly.
For sure. But shout out to Ty Cowboys. I appreciate you rocking with us, when you're able to. This does bring up the point, Randall was here 2 years, I believe, before Brunson got here. And the Knicks showed no such inclination to make him a captain. Even now, you look at, when it comes to his extension, and I get it, they don't want to go over the second apron, but my question is, why not? And I get, I know that they want that flexibility to pivot if things don't work out. But another way you can look at that is they want to pivot because maybe they're not sure. Now, sure in their belief. Obviously, there's no way you can be 100% know 100% until it actually happens, right? Boston didn't know 100% till it actually happened, but they had a belief in the team that they constructed, and so they felt comfortable going over that second apron, clearly knowing that it may not work, but they felt like they had a pretty good shot. I don't know if the Knicks feel that. I think they feel like, yeah, I think so. I think so. But we want to have this back hatch. We want to have this backdoor escape, just in case. And in my opinion, it's coming at the expense of Julius Randle and getting his full extension. You look at these other teams, they're maxing out their two best players. And Jalen Brunson took the max that he can get this year. He decided not to wait another year. But if he waited another year, it would have been his choice to give a Knicks a discount. It wouldn't have been no negotiation about, we need you to take this so that we could stay under this. It would have been, Jalen, if you want to give us some flexibility, fine. But if not, whatever you want, that's what we're going to do. And Julius Randle doesn't seem to have those same options. And I'm not sure what it's about. Is it about they're not quite sure? about him as far as the playoffs are concerned because it hasn't translated for reasons that I don't think is all Randle. But he just doesn't seem to be getting the same.
I think I have an explanation for that.
Okay, give it to me.
You may not like it, or you may not think it's valid, but I think that how do I put this? So there are only two players on this franchise that the Knicks this current front office inherited: Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle. So they like both of those guys. Both of those players have good basketball skill sets. They do a lot of things on the court that are useful to winning basketball games. But they're really the only two guys that this front office didn't personally bring in and say this is part of our plan moving forward. Now they did give Randle that other contract, but that's as much about, look, this is an asset that we need to have moving forward. You can't just let that asset walk out the door. As it is, so I think that part of it they like Julius Randle as a player, they like Mitchell Robinson as a player, but they didn't handpick those guys. Everybody else, they've kind of had they had their own hand. Leon Rose acquired those other players, whereas he had those other players, and even Tom Thibodeau got here. Those two guys were here. And so I think that has, and whenever you're building something in your own image, whenever you're the architect of something, you want to have all the pieces that you wanted, right? All the pieces that you built with you. So I think that's a common theme. Not that Julius Randle isn't a good piece, or even Mitchell Robinson, not that they're not good pieces, but they're not necessarily their pieces.
Yeah, I hear that. But when you were a GM and you inherit a team and you look and you see that you have a dominant player, yeah, I mean, I didn't draft him, I didn't sign him as a free agent, but I can see that this guy is dominant. This guy can be one of the cornerstones of a championship contending team. I don't know if what we're seeing is just that, Geoff, that we didn't draft him. I don't know. And I don't quite, like Jalen and Randle could have been co-captains. They could have. I get wanting to pivot and have that flexibility, but there are certain players in the league you're like, pivot be damned, flexibility be damned. I'm gonna make sure I lock this guy up. This is my guy. He's one of the cornerstones. If I got him and I got Brunson, we good. And if there's going to be any shaving, it's going to be somewhere else. OG and Anobi. Though in all fairness, OG had leverage, which I think had a lot to do with the contract he received. I don't know. It's just something that I'm curious. It's just something that I'm curious about.
Yep.
Is that it as far as comments are
Yeah,
concerned?
yeah. They come in fast and furious in the chat here, but we got to move on.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about Jalen Brunson's role now. We talked about him now as the captain and basically the face of the franchise. And we might have been a season ago going back and forth between who's the best player, who's the face of the franchise. Him being named captain, I think that's been solidified off the court. You think of the New York Knicks, Jalen Brunson. But now let's transition to on the court and the game and his game. Do you think his role changes now with Randle back, with Bridges coming in, with OG Anunoby being a little better on the offensive end than I thought he was. So there's potential there. Do you think Brunson becomes, let me see how I want to frame this. Do you think he should focus on being a facilitator first and a scorer second, or he should just continue to play his game, pass first, shoot first, and that's going to open up the game for the others? What's your thoughts on that? Ajay, we'll start with you, and then Geoff.
So the way I feel Brunson's been playing it is I don't think he goes into the game with a preset, with his mind preset, like what he's gonna do, right? He reads the game, whatever the game needs is what he's gonna do. So if and we've seen this last season when we had games where Brunson was more of a passer. Like he distribute the ball. And a lot of times he needed to score the ball. And he did just that. And a lot of times he needed to, like, he does what he needs to do to win the game. So now he has more weapons. He has more options. So I expect him to be I expect us to have more of those games where he's passing the ball. However, I think he needs to still have that shoot first, score first mentality. Not only because he can score, but because he keeps the other team on their heels, right? If the other team think Brunson's just looking to pass the ball, they're not going to double team him too often. But if he's looking to score the ball, they'll crowd his pace, and that will more likely to have guys open. You know, those wing guys. You know, we more likely to have open shots for all those other guys. So I don't think a whole lot's going to change. He's going to read the game. So the change we're going to see with what the game, you know, how the team evolves throughout the season, right? So if Mikal Bridges come here and he's killing it, he's doing like 25 points a game, it's going to be something different than if he's just more of a defensive player giving you 12 points a game and then locking somebody up on defense. You know what I'm saying? So it's just going to be a read and react kind of thing with Brunson. I don't think we can go into the season and say this is what he's going to do. They're going to have a bunch of set plays, you know, the coaching staff, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. But he's going to have a lot of options, and we're going to see a lot of different plays, a lot of different things that they do, depending on the game and depending on the opponent they're playing on a particular night. So it's not going to be a preset. It's not going to be pre-planned. It's going to be, let's see what the game does, what the game says, and then we'll react to it. And it's going to be very successful.
So basically keep his approach the same, and how that plays out over the course of a game or
exactly
may vary.
May vary. And even with this loaded roster, there may still be nights where he scores 50 points. You know, because there could be a night where Randle doesn't have it. Randle's turning the ball over. Bridges doesn't have it. DiVincenzo is on and off. We don't know. He may need to score 50 points on any given nights. On any given night, and then it's still going to happen the same way it happened last season. You know, so I think that's going to be the same.
Geoff, what's your thoughts on that?
So I just think he's such a high IQ player. He's going to do what the game tells him to do, and that's such a Tom Thibodeau-ism. Ajay's probably covering his ears. But, you know, do what the game tells you to do, you know? And so often, you know, what my favorite Jalen Brunson is when he kind of gets Julius cooking in the first quarter and really gets Randle off to a hot start, and you kind of just feed the beast. And then as Randle starts to draw two to the ball, then he gets those wide open threes, and come to closing time, then he still has all that energy to make more of those fantastic closing clutch plays that we're used to. And he has more weapons than he's ever had before. So I think you might see better assist numbers out of him this year, per se. You may see a smaller shot diet. I don't think it's going to go away completely. I mean, a lot of what makes Jalen Brunson a great threat is his ability to, you know, make impossible finishes look easy, over any type of defender. That's, that's one of his primary skills on the floor. So I don't think from that aspect, I don't think that's going to change, especially come down the stretch of games. But I knowing Brunson, he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that Bridges gets involved, to make sure that OG gets involved, definitely to make sure Randle gets involved, because the more that those guys are touching the ball, the easier it's going to be for him to score, because if they're worried about those other guys, then he's going to have more favorable matchups. He's not going to have to go, 1-on-2 every time down the floor. He's not going to have to worry about constant trapping, because they're not going to be able to do that, if all those other guys are being effective on the floor. So I think it's very possible that the results change a little bit, but I kind of agree with AJ. I think that the attack mentality needs to be maintained, and let the game dictate whether this is a scoring night, this is a passing night, or somewhere in between.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to add to that. I agree with both of you. I think his approach should stay the same, meaning being aggressive offensively. He is a he is a shoot first point guard. And that does open things up for others on the team because of the attention that that he gets. And in my mind, he's a willing passer. And there were times last year when he would force the issue, but in my opinion, I thought it was necessary. In my opinion, I thought that him taking what was considered a forced shot might have been our best option than passing it to somebody else who maybe had cleaner a cleaner look. And I think the other thing is that when you're a star in this league, and even if you're not considered a star, but you're the number one or number two guy on your team, and you are super confident in your game, it it don't even feel like a force to you. It felt like this is a shot I can hit against anybody. Those on the outside may look like he's forcing it, but to that player, I just missed a shot. That's all that was. They just think about it. They think about it differently. Um, but I do think he will pass more, only because he's surrounded by personnel players who can make plays, who can hit shots, and that he trusts. I've seen Brunson not pass to Grimes, who was wide open when Grimes was on the team. And I've seen him willingly pass the ball to a McBride or someone else because he trusts their shot making. I think everybody he's gonna be on the floor with, he trusts their ability to make a shot or make the right play. So I do think his assists will go up, but I don't think it's gonna go up because he's consciously saying, "Oh, I have to pass more, I have to facilitate more." To you two's both of your points, he's just reading the game. He has a high IQ. He's just reading the game, and this is what the game is dictating. So this is where the ball should go. And I think there's going to be nights when he has more. He doesn't score a lot of points, where he's not the leading scorer, and I think he's going to be fine with it. The great thing about him is he's still going to be the guy in crunch time. Like he has the 2 years he's been here, he's been one of the best players in the last 5 minutes of the game. And as long as he continues to do that for us, the Knicks are going to be very difficult to beat.
Great.
Shout out to JM3000. He'll pass a little more, maybe, but not maybe. He will, because he has more weapons. And I think Queen just alluded to that. It's just going to happen. His assist numbers are going to go up. Definitely. I mean, from last season, not only you got Julius Randle coming back healthy, and you have now you have Mikal Bridges, you have DiVincenzo is going to make DiVincenzo is going to improve also. By the way, you guys, you know that naturally he's going to get better this year. He's going to be, I think he's going to be more effective, in his percentage. because we are more consistent, I should say, because we've had games last season where DiVincenzo was on fire and then the next 2 days he was cold. So that's going to increase. You got to remember, the assist is not the passing the ball. It's a two part stat. You got to pass the ball and the next guy got to make the shot, right? So it's not that, because Brunson passes the ball. It's just the next guy doesn't make the shot. So that doesn't count as an assist. But this year, those guys, I think, like I said, he's got more weapons. So more guys are going to be making their shots. So that's why the assists are going to go up. Not necessarily that he's going to pass it more. It's just those guys are going to make it. It's a combination of both.
Yeah. So. Agreed. I think you might want to look at his pass percentage. And I don't quite recall where it is, and his pass percentage compared to other point guards. And I think that will give you a better indication.
Right. Shout out to Parrish Duggar, always rocking with us. And yeah. And I think I said that in my thing, that he needs to be that score first point guard, because otherwise, if they know he's looking to pass, he's not going to get as many double teams as he is. They have to know that he's looking to score the ball so they could cloud his space and leave some other guys open.
He's basically making it easier for the other team if he's
right,
coming out laying back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, you got to keep the pressure on. You got to put a lot of pressure on the defense. Attack like you're going to score. When they double triple team you, then you dish out because there's one or two guys open. That's actually simple basketball 101. If the guy can't score, like, he needs to try to score as much as possible. When he doesn't have the shot, he passed the ball. So,
well, I didn't. Okay, go ahead.
No, you could go. Do you have something to say? But
no, that's good. That's good. No, go ahead.
JJ, Brunson's going to continue to play his game. I don't see much changing. We all agree on that.
But do we think he should change it? Well, we don't. We don't think it. I guess we get asked to chat if they think he should change it. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he should change his game. I think we, all three of us, and probably most people in the chat also, except for Donald DiMichele, who says neither Brunson or Randle is going to. I disagree. I think it depends on the game. There going to be some games this season where one of these guys go off because that's what the game requires. That's what they're reading. And also, if the guy's got the hot hand, like, why not? Right. If Brunson, if he can't miss, shoot every time. If you keep hitting it, then keep shooting. Like, he's not going to pass the ball and he can score it and he pass the ball just to pass the ball.
And if this season taught us anything, is that circumstances change throughout the season. I think Donald is with the mentality that we have the full healthy roster the whole season, but that's just not how seasons work. There are going to be times when we're down a player or two, even if it's just for a game or two, and you may need a 50 burger out of one of those guys, or you may just get an elite performance out of one of those guys. And again, I think it's more possible because they have more weapons around them, and when the more that the defense has to pay attention to the other players on the court and has to play you straight up one-on-one, well, guess what? And nobody in basketball can guard Julius Randle one-on-one. And then Jalen Brunson either. They can't be guarded one-on-one. That's what makes them special players. That's why they're all NBA talents, is because you can't stop them with one defender. It just doesn't happen.
Right. And with the players that we have around them now, they'll probably get more one-on-one opportunities because teams now have to decide. So what do we want to do? Who are we going to double them with? Are we going to double off of OG? Are we going to double off of Bridges? Maybe we'll double off of Mitch. But if we do, you better get back and box him out when that shot goes up because he has a knack for offensive rebounds.
Or maybe it's not a shot that goal. Maybe it's an alley oop. So if you double off of him now, he's all in the dunker spot all by himself.
Yeah.
So
we have to do a better job of finding him, though. I think
He
that's
has to do a
something.
better job of catching and finishing also.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to G Robinson, who brings up a good point. He says Brunson can pretty much score at will. He should get the others involved early and get his late.
That's fair.
Is it like I, I don't know if I agree with that 100% because I don't. So, and people say this all the time, right? The point guard's got to get the other guys involved. And I agree. That is the point guard. He's the captain. He's the point guard. He's leading this team. She's got to get everybody involved. But should he wait till late to get his? Like, I mean, if at the beginning of the game they're leaving him wide open, or they guarding him one-on-one, and he's getting to the basket, he's getting the shots, he's scoring the ball, does he kind of force the game, like force the issue to get the other guys involved and kind of slow his game down? I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah, that's like another level processing. And I think if anybody can do it, it is it's JB. And that is, there's been some players who have talked about that, really good players, great players who've talked about that. I wanna but that comes from knowing your team, knowing what your team needs, knowing that this guy plays better if he gets involved early. So let me get him involved early so then I know late he's gonna be, he's gonna be good. Um, Sometimes you need that. Sometimes though you're surrounded by players who are good early and late. So it doesn't even matter. You don't even have to get so and so off. I think that would have worked with somebody like Grimes. Let's give Grimes a few looks, early and see if that helps him get in the flow because he's kind of, inconsistent in this particular game. We really need him to come through. So let's feed him early. Um, and he may find that there's a player or two on this team that he needs to do that for. Otherwise, I just think through just organic ball movement, guys are going to get their shots.
And kind of organic without forcing it, right? Like it's probably going to be within the flow of the game.
Yeah. I think so because to your point, it's having gravity. It's commanding the attention of the defense that really makes it easy for your team. When you, like you said, when you have them on their heels and they're scrambling, trying to figure out how are we going to stop this guy. That's what gets a team, that's what makes you difficult to beat. If you got Brunson out there just, passing the ball around, you're taking the pressure, off of that defense. They're happy with an equal opportunity offense because they know there's nobody else on the team that's going to be as effective as Jalen Brunson. And those guards are as good as their ability to take pressure off of Brunson. So thank you, JJ. JJ said 39 likes.
Somebody said 3. And speaking of JJ says, will the spacing be worse this year in the starting 5 with Mitch replacing Hartenstein and Bridges replacing Dante DiVincenzo? That's a good question. And not so much Bridges, because I think Bridges could play inside, outside. He's like a little bit more flexible. He's not going to crowd the middle, but Mitchell Robinson is, I guess, the question here. Because, with him coming back and Julius Randle being back in the lineup, what do you guys think in terms of spacing?
Geoff?
I'm not real sure. I think I'm kind of curious that last year Queen had a gut feeling that when Dante DiVincenzo came, he was going to be better than we've seen him. I kind of have a feeling that when Mikal Bridges gets here, he's going to be better than what we saw in Brooklyn. I just had that feeling because he's not going to have to be the first option. He doesn't have to be the second option. And so That's going to mean a lot of really good looks for him, a lot of good opportunities. And Mikal Bridges is a very good offensive player. He can shoot the three. He can do stuff off the bounce. He has a lot of offensive skill. And OG Anunoby is a player with a lot of offensive skill also. So I think that is potentially, like, on paper, yes, but I think that that's something that through game planning that they can mitigate, because again, you have, where's the double team coming from? Because they're going to be doubling. So if they're doubling off of Mitch, that means you're giving up offensive rebounds. And if you're giving up offensive rebounds, then that feeds right into what the Knicks are doing. And again, one of Mitch's really good skills, actually, as an offensive rebounder, is catching it and getting it out quickly to the corner for the three-point shooter. That's something that he does rather well. And so you could end up, seeing I think we're going to be difficult to guard in any event. I don't think Mitchell Robinson's not a good offensive player, but I don't think he craters our whole game plan just because we have so much really good offensive talent around him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the spacing is not going to be as good as it was when Hartenstein is here. But I don't know if that means that our offense won't be as good. Remember, Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson had their best seasons, one of their best seasons, with Mitchell Robinson and RJ Barrett in that starting lineup. And so they didn't have as much space, but they were really good at operating in the space that they had. And they did a really good job of it. And I don't think the spacing is going to be as bad as it was with that team. So I think that we'll be okay there, JJ. The other thing I think and I hope is, and I talked about this on the lunchtime show with Tony Crow. Be sure to check us out on Mondays around 12. And we're thinking about doing 12 and 1, 12 p.m. on my channel, 1 p.m. on his channel on Monday. So check us out on your lunch break. But one of the things we talked about this afternoon was Thibodeau really has to commit to a small ball lineup. And I think those minutes behind Mitch, I think Mitch in his career hasn't played more than 26 or 27 minutes a game. And I don't expect that to change this season. And so where do those minutes behind him go? Those, 21 minutes? Do they go to Sims? Do they go to Precious Achua? Or do they go to, a Randall or OG, which allows us to open up some more wing minutes, because we kind somewhat have a glut there. If you would like Josh Hart and DiVincenzo to get at least 25 minutes a game, which I do. So I think we have to commit to a small ball lineup, just like we know at the 6 minute mark substitutions come in that first quarter or whatever it is. I want it to be like that. I don't know, with 10 minutes into the second quarter, our small ball lineup is in there, and you can book it. It's just part of our identity, because what that does is now you could play 5 out. Now the defense has to be attached to everybody that's on the court. And what that does is that opens up some things that might be missing with Mitch, is those backdoor cuts, because now you don't have a player stuck in the lane taking away cuts, right? So you go to that small ball lineup. Hopefully, if you could put Josh Hart in that lineup, hopefully if OG Anunoby can level up his rebounding game, and we saw him do that in the playoffs as well, so we know he's capable, and we know Randall is a beast on the boards. We won't really have to worry about rebounding with that small ball lineup if they can do that. And then if we have the perimeter defenders, we don't have to worry too much about rim protection, because how many players are getting to the rim? If we have, good perimeter defenders out there. So to JJ's point, I think spacing will be less, but I think they can handle it even with Mitch in the game. And we have to commit to the small ball, because otherwise you're making it easy for the defense. you're making it easy for the defense. If you don't have somebody in that 5 spot that can score, pass, do multiple things on the offensive end.
Parrish Duggar says teams are going to make other players beat them besides Brunson. And Parrish Duggar, that's a good thing because guess what? We have the other players that can beat him this time. We have plenty of other guys who can beat them besides Jalen Brunson. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. The end result's going to be the same. The Knicks are going to win.
Yeah.
In the case like this.
I can't say I disagree. Listen, Milwaukee, figured out that we need to put shooters around Giannis. Pick your poison. You want to build a wall around Giannis so he can't get to the lane? That means the shooters are open.
Right.
You want to stay home with the shooters? That means the lane is open for Giannis. I think it's going to be the same thing with the way this team is constructed as well. If you want to stay home, Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson can eat any single coverage. You want to double? We got guys that can hit shots. Pick your poison. Which one you want to do because we're going to be able to cover it. So I think we're in a good spot as far as that's concerned.
Yep. All right. Good. That's it with the chat.
All right. I wanted to bring a question to you guys that Tony and I talked about this morning. The Knicks were got within one game of the Eastern Conference Finals. Randle last played at the end of January. Our offense looked a little different. I don't think it looked a little different because of Randle not being in there. I think our offense began to look different when Dante DiVincenzo and Isaiah Hartenstein entered into that starting lineup because there was in January when we were, 15-2, 14-2, whatever it is, and OG and Randle was playing, there was similar ball movement. So my question to you two is, are you buying or selling that Julius Randle's role will change on this? Is a two-part question. That his role will change on the team, and are you buying or selling that he's not a good fit with the rest of the players on this team? Geoff?
I think he fits. I don't see why he wouldn't. I love his gravity. I love the fact that he's a bully inside. I don't think we really have anybody else who does that. I think if he can get his touches inside and make those little 5-footers like he was and keep that shot diet, maybe not shoot so many threes. Like, I don't think we need him taking 10 3-pointers a game like he did 2 seasons ago. But I think he fits. I don't see why he wouldn't. I mean, I actually think you're going to see better defense from him because the players around him are going to be stronger and he's not going to have to do as much. And when you don't have and when he doesn't have as much to think about, he tends to play better. And if he has more energy, to exert because he doesn't have to be, the only offensive hub, then he also is going to have more energy. So maybe I'm just optimistic, but I'm very hopeful that he can not only fit but thrive because I think we saw. Well, before he got hurt, he was our leading assist guy. Like, especially in the month of January, the ball was moving well, and a lot of that was because of him. So, and again, is Bridges as good a 3-point shooter as Dante? Maybe not, but I think he's still really good. I think OG is a very good corner 3-point shooter as well. And that's one of the things that Randle does well is they are very cognizant of that corner 3 and getting that ball sprayed out and now you have two guys, so you can put one in each corner if you want to, and that just gives you more possibilities. To me, there's very few power forwards in this game that are better than Julius Randle. So if we're as good as everybody says that we are, then he should be an asset and not a liability. And I honestly believe that he is. I think that I honestly think this could be his best season ever. I don't know that he'll score as much as he's. I don't think he'll necessarily have the highest scoring average he's ever had, but he doesn't have to.
Right.
Just in terms of a team concept, this is the best teammates he's ever had. And I think he's a guy who wants to prove that he belongs out there with these. I think it crushed him that he worked so hard to get back for the playoffs, and then he had that setback and he couldn't. And so I think that this is going to be very special for him to be a part of this group and to pull his weight and to do what he needs to do. So that was part A. What was part B again? I'm sorry, I lost. I only get one thought in my head at a time. So
will his role change on the team?
I don't know. I don't think that it will, actually. I think that he'll be the second scorer. I think he'll get a lot of opportunities, especially early on in games, to kind of punish the defense. I think you'll see him get some opportunities with the second unit on nights when he hasn't been able to score with the first unit as much for whatever reason. I think you'll get to see him as the focal point there with because I think we're only going to play 9 guys. So I think that you have a player like Julius Randle, you know that he's effective in certain things, and so cater to that. And Jalen Brunson is really good about doing that. I think that's one of his strengths is saying, okay, let's get the ball to Julius. Let's keep Julius happy because it's good for us. And when he's going well, he's better defensively. And when he's going well, it's easier for me. And don't forget, all of those wide open 3-pointers disappeared when Randle went down in January. He was getting at least 3 of those looks a game. And when you can get easy looks, wide open looks, catch and shoot looks for a shooter like Jalen, that's cash money, and it makes his job easier. So those are shots that we as a team want also. So I think we're going to hunt things like that as the season progresses. So is it going to take a little bit to get him back in the flow and getting used to playing with McCall and yeah, it's going to be an adjustment, but I think it's going to be an adjustment for a lot of them because I think it's going to be adjustments for Hart and DiVincenzo, who were playing, starters minutes for, the lion's share of the second half of last year. And I just don't see that happening with the talent that's on the floor right now. So everybody's going to have to adjust. Everybody's going to have to, sacrifice for the better of the team. But I think those are the personalities that we have. And I don't think he's going to be a detriment at all. You're muted, Queen.
On Ajay, your thoughts on that? Buying or selling that he's a fit and that his role will change?
Edwin P. Shout out to Edwin P. I think he's a fit. He's a Brunson. Julius Randle. Let's not forget we all feel the same way. If Julius Randle was on the team last season, we would have went. God only knows how far we would have gotten. Julius Randle. The only way Julius Randle would not fit with this current squad is if they add another power forward as strong as he is, or another big, like another 5 that clogs the middle worse than Mitchell Robinson. Okay, and it's not like Julius Randle doesn't necessarily have to play in the middle. Okay, I mean, we know that. We've seen him play. He doesn't necessarily have to play under the basket. Yeah, he's more effective when he bullies his way in. He scores, it's much easier for him to score, but he doesn't have to play that way. So, yes, he's going to fit, no problem. Whether the role will change, no, absolutely not. The opportunities may change, but not the role. It's going to be the same role. He may have less touches, but he's still going
Mhm.
to have the same role. And maybe he's more efficient uh, in the fewer touches that he has, as opposed to less opportunities for turnovers and stuff like that, because he also has more options. So he could see the floor better because with more player movement and stuff like that. But the role is absolutely not going to change, in my opinion. It's just a different set of opportunities. So he's just gonna go with that, and his play is gonna reflect that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm selling. I think he's a really good fit for this team. I think this team was built around him and Brunson to have two players that could generate offense for themselves and others, and having players around them that can shoot and finish off of them. I think Mikal Bridges brings a little more, because I think Mikal Bridges can not only you know um, play off the ball and finish the looks he gets from Brunson and Randall, but he can also generate looks himself, right? With his game. But I don't know at this point of his career if Mikal Bridges is commanding the attention of the defense in terms of double teams the way Brunson and Randall is. We shall see. Like I said, I haven't watched him a lot. I'm familiar with him, but I haven't watched him game in and game out. So maybe he does have that game where he commands a double team as well. And then we have three players who are really commanding the attention of the defense. But for now, going into the season, we need that secondary scorer. We need Randall with the gravity. We remember how much of a load it was for Brunson last season to create for himself and others, right? And I think Randall coming back takes the load off of him, and potentially Mikal Bridges as well.
Right. Edwin P. Randall deserves to win. He's been through it all. I agree with that. I hope we win a championship with Julius Randle at the very least, just to say thank you to him for coming here when nobody else wanted to come here, and basically changing the course, the direction of this team, along with Tom Thibodeau.
Right.
You got to
So
remember.
there's no better way for him to get paid. They
Yeah.
win that championship, they're cutting that check for him in free agency, whatever amount they need to keep. They're not going to. In other words, once it's a proven commodity and you know that he's a guy and can do it. That's if he wants to get the contract he wants. There's no better way than to be part of a championship.
Yep. You know, and I can't say that enough. He came here when nobody else wanted to come here. That's like nobody. Now the Knicks is sexy. It looks good. It sounds good. It's good. It's a good story.
Mhm.
But when Julius Randle came here, it was not.
Right.
Like he was second or third option that we got.
We weren't cool back then.
Yeah, we weren't cool. Exactly. So yeah.
Did we do Darlene Bryant's comment that you have starred?
He put it up
Yes,
there. I
yes,
don't
I
know.
did.
You
I put
did?
it up already. This one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
Darlene does. She doesn't agree with us, but yeah, this
Yeah.
that
We have more options. I think his role will be the same. Whether that statistically he'll have the same numbers, that remains to be seen. But I think his role will be the same. I start Paris Duggar's comment. I wanted to see what you guys thought about that.
mhm.
So we want to read them because there's some people who are listening, and they won't.
Oh yeah, okay. So it's ridiculous to ignore that this team completely dominated after OG and Hart replaced Julius. It's a new role now. That
Um, I think completely dominated is kind of strong. strong.
I don't think it's accurate.
It's exaggerated.
Our dominant stretch happened when OG and Randle played together.
Yep.
When Randle went down, look at our record from February on. We were not dominant. In fact, in the month of February, we were bad.
We were bad.
And OG was out too, so there was context there. But I'm just saying, and I guess we did kind of hit our stride again at the close of the season to march to the 2 seed. But our best stretch of the season was when OG and Randle played together, not when we played without Randle.
Not when Randle.
I think in February we were 4-8, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. We had a bad February. But then we were able to kind of bring it back, and kind of coalesce and kind of get some chemistry to close out the season. And I will also comment that in the playoffs, to you guys' point, if Randle was playing, we would have definitely been in the Eastern Conference Finals. No question about it. But let's not act like we did come within one game of the Eastern Conference Finals. But let's not act like we flew to that point. We crawled to that point. We scratched to get to that point. We were running on fumes to get to that point. Players had to play over their head, and kudos to them. And by over their head, meaning that's not really what you expected of them, but they came through and did it. And you can look at Josh Hart in that Philly series. The first, I don't know if it was for the series, but those first few games where he was scoring like 20 points a game, hitting his shots, and Nick Nurse had to change his strategy because his strategy was to leave Josh Hart open. But I don't have a lot of faith that could be duplicated, that Hart can duplicate that for an entire season if we didn't have Julius Randle and if it was OG and Hart. I don't have a lot of faith in that. Guys had to really step up and play a little above their heads. And I don't think you can expect that for an entire season. And I don't think we can expect that again. It was beautiful. It was magical. But that's not something you want. You want it to be a little easier. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, I was going to say it was also refreshing and surprising to see that happening. And by Julius going down kind of improved the team in the sense that the players we had on the bench that we didn't know were that good became that good. And we didn't lose those guys are still on the team. So now we know what they can do when they come on, when they come on the floor. And a lot of their minutes, Queen, is going to be against other teams' bench players.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have the luxury of falling behind with the starters, and then the bench players come in and rack up the points. I mean, you don't want to be in that position, but I think we're going to have that possibility of that happening a couple of times this season.
Yeah. The only thing about it is on that second team, I only see DiVincenzo. I mean, he's a shooter. Is he a scorer? Is Josh Hart a scorer? Who's the scorer on that second unit? I'm not saying that they can't score, but who's the scorer on that second unit?
On that second unit, you're gonna have somebody from the starting lineup stay with them. There's gonna be an overlap. So wherever that overlap is gonna score, right? Be it Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, which most likely is gonna be the guy, Julius Randle, or OG Anunoby. Either one of those guys can score. But let's not forget I know we still haven't we've debated, but we still haven't come to a conclusion or to an agreement what campaign's role. I think he's going to be coming off the bench. He can score, that kid. I mean, he's not going to give you 30 points, but when you put him in there, he could be very productive. He's another guy that can score and can distribute the ball. You're going to have DiVincenzo, you're going to have Hart, you're going to have guys that can score. They're not going to be blowing anybody out, but against other teams' bench players, that's going to be a formidable team to put out there.
Yeah, by committee. Yeah. No, I get you. Yeah, I get you. Anything else about anything we talked about before we move on to preseason schedule? All right.
No, let's go to preseason.
You got your printout out, Jay?
No, I think Queen. Are you gonna post it, Queen? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I will do a. Let's see if I can do a screen share. But make it bigger. All right, let's see. All right. I don't know if it's big enough. Is it big enough?
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, we could see the date.
Yeah. Let me
and the team.
Let me see if I can find it on a
I have it.
You have it on a window? Okay.
No, I'm looking. No, I'm looking for it. I had it.
Yeah, I just had it too. Let's see. That's not a. Anyway, as we trying to find it.
Well, I don't know about the preseason, but I saw that we're going to be opening in Boston for the season opener.
Yes, we'll get into that. We'll get into that as well.
They always have to play the Celtics at game 1. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Who are we playing for Christmas? They published that also.
San Antonio. We got Wemby at the Garden.
All right. So anyway, on October 6th, we're going to be in Charlotte playing the Charlotte Hornets. On the 9th, we're playing the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, I found it.
You found it? If you want to share it, you can.
I found it on Sports Illustrated. We could read it off because that'd have to. Yeah, on the 13th, we playing the Timberwolves. 15th, the Hornets again, and on the 18th, we playing the Washington Wizards again at Washington.
Right.
So on the 6th we were away, and on the 18th we were away. The other 3 games were home.
Yeah, so we're at home against Washington, Minnesota, and the Hornets, and we're away at Charlotte and Washington. So there's a home and away with Washington and in the preseason. Anything you're looking forward to in the preseason? Anything specific? Obviously, we want to see our team. It's the beginning of the season started, but is there anything particular you're looking for in these preseason games?
Well, I'll start off. I mean, you want to see the most important thing you want to see is the chemistry between those guys, right? And they're gonna have a few days, a couple of weeks of training camp to get stuff going. Yeah, we take it for granted that Mikal Bridges is gonna come here because he played with the other guys. Yeah, he played with Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Hart, but that's not all we have on our team, right? We also have Julius Randle. We also have Mitchell Robinson, Precious Achiuwa, and OG Anunoby, and those guys. He also played with Campaign, but you still want to see what the chemistry is like, number one. And number two, at least I'm hoping, and I'm not sure that we're going to see that, but I'm hoping Tom Thibodeau, we're able to watch Tom Thibodeau's rotations. Chances are we're not going to see that in the preseason. Like, he's going to randomly throw stuff out there. But, and when the season starts, you see like what the real rotation look like. But I'm hoping we're starting to see, at least have an idea what the rotation is going to be like. Hopefully, not sure Tom Tibbs going to do that.
I think it depends. There's been times when he'll have his rotation set from the first game of preseason. Like, wow, like there's not going to be any experimentation. You just, And there's been times
This time he
last
doesn't do that. Like, yeah.
last season when he didn't do that, and I don't know if that was because JB was coming off of FIBA and Hart was coming off of FIBA, so they barely played in the preseason. And the Knicks, if I remember correctly, didn't get off to a great start.
The Queen. The other thing I want to look for also is, Julius Randle, right? Because the last time we saw it, like he was, he was being helped off the court with his shoulder dislocated. So you want to see what he looks like. Him, Mitchell Robinson, same thing. Is he going to get some minutes in the preseason? You want to see what shape they're in. Same thing with OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby was the hamstring. That you figure he's going to be okay, but you want to see how those guys are health wise, like how are they doing, and what to expect, especially Mitch and Julius, who've had surgery, especially those two guys. You want to see how their recovery went in, like what kind of shape they're in. That's another thing you want to look out for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rotation, particularly how he's handling that backup point guard position and how he's handling the backup center position. Will we see small ball, or is he going with Sims or Precious Achua? Is he going with Miles McBride, or is he going with a more traditional point guard who maybe can facilitate more? So I'm really looking at those two positions and see how that works in preseason.
Geoff?
Yeah. I just want to stay healthy. I don't put a whole lot of stock in preseason. I mean, it's great to have the guys. It's great to have Knicks basketball back, and of course, I always want to win anytime we step on the floor. But I don't put a whole lot of stock in preseason. I am interested. It seemed like 2 years ago we did kind of play our starters a lot heavier load than we did last year, and last year we kind of felt like we almost punted on the preseason. Like we played a lot of our, end of the bench guys more minutes than I was certainly expecting. And so from that standpoint, I think it'll be interesting, so it'll be an interesting battle for those, last few spots on the roster. Who makes the final cut is always interesting.
Yeah.
And with that, what's the five coming off the bench? Top notch T. Shout out to you.
I don't think it's going to be five. I think it's going to be 3 or 4.
Or does he mean the center coming off the bench? Or does he mean?
Oh, right. Is he talking about 5 players coming off the bench?
I think he's talking about 5 players.
Okay.
Talking about the 5 players coming off the bench.
I don't think we're going to have 5 players.
I don't think we're going to have 5 players coming.
So out of DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Precious Achua, Campaign, Deuce McBride. So one of those guys is not getting any minute. You're saying?
I think Campaign is situational. I'm just going to say that up front. I'll be shocked if he's getting major minutes since there's an injury.
And Kolek.
And Kolek is situational. I think Precious is situational.
I think Precious is situational too.
Wow, I don't see it that way, man.
Yeah.
I think I don't see it that way. I think these guys are being
the reason I see it that way is because Precious is at your traditional rim protecting 5 anyway. So if he's going to have to go, because if you're playing Precious, you're playing small ball. So if he's going to have to play small ball anyway, I think he'd be more likely to go with one of the players. He's maybe not in a preseason game, but once the regular season starts, I think he'll be more comfortable going with an OG Anunoby or a Julius Randle or along with Josh Hart, because as Queen rightly pointed out, we've got to squeeze minutes for Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. I mean, we're going to have to squeeze the orange pretty hard to get them up to their 25 minutes. I don't think they want to play those guys like 15. They don't want to play Moby Toppin minutes. I don't think. I mean, they're too good, and I think if you were to do that to DiVincenzo, you're not going to get the best out of him. I think the more court time that he gets, the more chance he has to get in a flow and a rhythm and get those shots up. I think that's true for all shooters. I think it's very rare you just see someone be able to come off the bench cold and just stroke it like like they played the whole quarter.
Yeah. I mean, we already know who the starters are. I think it's going to be DiVincenzo, Hart for sure. McBride or Payne. I don't think I'm as confident as Geoff is that it will be um, McBride, but I'm not putting any money on it that it wouldn't be. you know, so that's three. And did I mention Hart? I had Hart, DiVincenzo. Let's just say McBride. That's 8. Who?
Campaign or Precious? If it's going to be 9 guys.
I guess it would be probably Precious then.
Unless, if he's going, the 9th guy.
Or am I missing someone?
Maybe it will be Precious. I do think one guy from the starting unit will, at least one, maybe even 2, will run with the will run with that second team. I don't think it's going to be 10. I don't think it's going to be 10. I think the Knicks' depth is going to be the fact that their situational players will be able to step into the rotation if someone is hurt or misses a game for whatever reason. That's going to be the depth. I don't think the depth is going to be playing 10 guys, because to play 10 guys, you're really limiting. Let's just say Josh Hart is playing the backup 4. He's limited to 17, 18 minutes behind Julius Randle. DiVincenzo is limited to 14, 15 minutes behind Mikal Bridges, and I just don't see that happening.
We do need a backup. And so, I think I think Precious would probably get at least some minutes as the 9th guy. I forgot that we have. Yeah, I think Precious will get some minutes as the 9th guy, but I don't think it'll be like. I think he may get like the 6 minutes at the end of the first half treatment, and then if he has he might get in for a little bit in the start the fourth quarter kind of a situation, get up to 10. But I think they're going to rely heavily on those top 8 guys because they're the best players and they need to play. I mean, let's be honest in other words, whose minutes do you want to take away to see Campaign or Precious Achiuwa on the floor from those top 8 guys? For me, the answer is no one. Like, I would rather see all those top 8 guys, now, I'm sure I'd get accused of running them into the ground and everything like that. But, if you have that many, you don't have to play them quite as many minutes either. So, it's a long season though.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know, there's a lot of sentiment in Knick community that, you want to play guys, limited minutes so that we can get to the playoffs healthy. If you're an NBA player, you should be able to play 34, 35 minutes a game. That's pretty much the average that an NBA player plays. 34, 35 minutes a game. You should be able to play 35 minutes a game, particularly for the Knicks, who during the season don't practice. They doing walkthroughs. So you're going to have your recovery. The only reason they were playing heavier minutes as the season went along was because of the injuries. And so you had to make a choice. Do we bump up the minutes, or do we keep the minutes the same and then bring players into the rotation who may not be NBA players or may not be better than guys? So do I want to play Hart 48, or do I want to bring in Dwayne Washington for 12 of those minutes, or Jacob Toppin for 12 of those minutes? I mean, that was the decision that was being made. And Tom Thibodeau decided he would rather go with Josh Hart for 48 minutes instead of bringing in a Dwayne Washington or a
Charlie Brown.
or a Charlie Brown. If we're healthy, the Knicks should be able to play 35 minutes a game. I mean, that's pretty. Josh Hart ended even playing those 48 minutes a game toward the end of the season. He's still with that average 35 minutes a game, right? So I think we're gonna be. I think we're gonna be fine. I don't think we have to artificially deflate or artificially, minimize the numbers, because a lot of those injuries weren't overuse injuries anyway. And if they weren't overuse injuries, then they can happen at any time.
Shout out to Kenny Payne. Pressure should start. I guess what we're talking about, to preserve Mitch for the playoffs. But the downside of that too, Queen, is, if the guy doesn't play all season, you could just throw him in the fire pit, in the snake pit, when playoffs about to start. He's just not going to be ready. I mean, these guys, there's a routine. These guys had to play. They got to play all season in order to be ready for the playoffs. You can't just throw the guy in there. When the level of play is like increased by tenfold. So it just doesn't work that way. But shout out to Kenny Payne though. I like Precious, but he's not going to start.
No.
Yeah. No. For small ball to work, and shout out to Coach. For small ball to work and everyone get their minutes, all players would need to be able to play up. The problem with that is Randle can't.
But OG can. So Randle could stay at the 4, and OG could play the 5 defensively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. And I think, small ball, we're really only talking about the 5 position.
Yeah.
When we're talking about,
we have a lot of length at everywhere else, especially when Jalen's not on the floor.
Yeah, hour 1, hour 2, hour 3, hour 4, they don't have to play up. They just play in their regular positions.
We know Josh Hart plays up at the 4. Like, we've seen him do that to great effect. I mean, so we know Hart can play the 4 if we need him to. So you could Hart OG 4-5 combination could definitely work. I don't think there's any question. You could run that for, not that you want to do that for a whole game or anything, but you're talking about off the bench for a few minutes. You can definitely get by with that. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And Parish Duggar, thank you for the super chat. Our logjam clearly shows a big trade. Do you guys think there's a trade coming at this point?
What's the logjam?
The only logjam is really at the guard position.
How is that a logjam? Campaign, a veteran journeyman, and Kolek, a rookie. Like, that's not a logjam. Now, if we had Chris Paul, Brunson, TJ McConnell or Lowry or whatever, then I'm like, all right, we that's, to me, that's not a logjam.
Well, I think he's, and Parish Duggar, correct me if I'm wrong here, at the guard position, not just point guard, but all the guards. Because you have Deuce McBride, who's a guard, 1 or 2. I know, most people don't think he could play the point guard, but he's played the point guard. Then you have DiVincenzo. So you basically have, was it 5 or 6 guys at those 2 positions? Maybe that's what he's referring to. I mean, we definitely don't have a logjam up front, at the, at the 4 and 5 position. Actually, we're actually kind of short there. But
we're short at the 5 spot.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Okay. All right. We shall see.
Queen, the other show, who's Ron's show started?
Yeah. Well, they started already, but I do want to ask Of course. Yeah.
I guess we'll plug it before we get off. We'll maybe everybody could go there. We'll shift it over there.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. But I do have a last question. This is an NBA question. This is an NBA question. USA won gold. Um, the game against Serbia was close. The game against France was, relatively, close. And so I heard them on NBA radio, Sirius XM. Shout out to those guys, Ernie Johnson, former Phoenix Sun, and other players. And I forgot the name of the other guy. If anybody in the chat knows, put it up. So Draymond Green said that he felt that this team, this USA team, would beat the Dream Team basically 5 out of 7 times. Is what it came to, and so they were discussing that. So I said, you know what? Let's bring it up. It's the off season. It's not really Knick related, but it's basketball related. All three of us are familiar with the Dream Team. A lot of the people in the chat in the replay game probably familiar with the 1996 USA Olympic team. That was the first year that NBA players were allowed to play in the
92.
Olympics.
Yeah,
92, excuse me,
They,
90,
they, they were
96 was the
they,
women.
they were always allowed, Queen. We just didn't think, we just felt like they were like we didn't need to send our best players, but NBA players were always allowed to play. We just didn't send them there.
When Sabonis smacked David Robinson, college David Robinson around in '88, and we won the bronze, then they're like, maybe we need to rethink just sending the college players against grown men.
Right. But what's your thoughts on that? Do you think this team could beat the Dream Team in a 7-game series?
I don't. And maybe I'm just an old head, but like to me, the Dream Team, the '92 team, is the greatest collection of basketball players we'll ever see. That team had depth at every position. I mean, they had Elijah Robinson and Ewing at the 5 spot. They had Charles Barkley and Karl Malone at the 4 spot. They had Scottie Pippen at the 3, and Chris Mullin backing him up. You had Jordan. You had Drexler. I don't buy it. To me, I think it's disrespectful to Jordan and those guys, especially if you're talking about playing with 90s rules. Now, if you're talking about the modern game, maybe the speed is too much for some of those guys. I don't know, but to me that 92 team didn't have any weaknesses on it whatsoever. I mean, they were as complete as you get from. I mean, John Stockton was on that team too. I forgot about Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. I mean, are you kidding me? No, I to me, I think I'm maybe I'm just showing my age, but I'm taking the 92 Dream Team, and I'm not thinking twice about it.
Because when you think about this team, other than the top heavy guys, Durant, LeBron, Steph, past their prime, still good though, still good. But you can argue Steph was better a few years ago. You can argue that as good as LeBron is right now, he was better 5 years ago. As good as Durant is now, he was better a few years ago. And then there's some players that wouldn't even make, like a Devin White or Drew Holiday. As good as those guys are defensively, they wouldn't make the team. A Bam Adebayo wouldn't make the team. So this team is top heavy, but they're not as deep as that Dream Team where everyone was in their prime except for Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, who were a bit past their prime.
But still really good.
But still really good. I mean, Larry Bird was dealing with back issues at that time. But the depth of that team was unbelievable.
So I don't, and we talked about this behind the scenes before we actually went live.
Mm-hmm.
I think what Draymond what Draymond Green is saying is, and I usually don't agree with that guy. I think what he was trying to say is not that this team. Well, he's. I know what he was trying to say, but the 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 thinking is that this team is better than it seems. I think that's what he's saying when he said that. And the reason he said that is because this team, the competition against this team is a much higher level than the people who competed against the Dream Team in 92. So you really can't judge, put one team against the other. But if you judge by their success, you would say this team this year is better because they're playing against much, much better competition than the guys in 92 played. The world basketball in 1992 is not as good as the world basketball today.
And you don't think they would have leveled up? Like they were crushing those guys. It wasn't like they was eking out like this 4-point win we had against Serbia or whatever we beat, France by. Like they were crushing those guys. So you don't think that their level of play would have been better against today's international players?
Yes, but it would not have been as wide a gap as it. Like I don't know. I don't agree that they would have beat him, but it's more competitive than people think. So when people are looking at us playing them in 92, crushing them, and us playing them now, and like you said, eking out those 4-point wins, that's not a good barometer. That's not a good indication of the other team was so much better because they was beating the world, because the world was not as good.
No, I'm just looking at the roster.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the roster and the caliber of players.
No, I agree. But I'm just saying what I think what they were saying over there. And I think, and I've talked, I've read some other stuff about that too. If they're really comparing the 92 team against with their success and this year's team and their success or their mild success. And it's not a fair comparison because the opponent this right now, on the world stage is so much better. I mean, in 92, those guys, that's why we used to send college players because competition back then was not as good.
But that's not what he said, Ajay. He said they would if this USA basketball team played the Dream Team, they would win 5 out of 7 games. They didn't say anything about the international competition.
I'm giving you my version of
I'm just telling you.
The first thing I said is I don't agree with Draymond Green.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I think that was like the first thing I say. I'm just saying. And I've read this, not just based on that. I've read that a couple of other places online. There's a couple of articles where they were talking about that. They were talking about that with all the sports, really. Right. And then hoops came up, and then they were saying that. But I don't. It's kind of tough to compare this year team and last year team. Who would have beat what? I don't know. I don't know if you can ever get anybody to agree on that.
Yeah, I will say this. When people are comparing teams in different eras or even players from different eras, they think that you're going to pluck Magic Johnson or the Dream Team from 92 with their same level of training that was available at that time and pit them against 2022 and the level of training these guys go through. No. If you're going to compare, you would have to think that Magic, Michael, Larry, all of those players would have access to the same nutritional science that these guys have access to, the same training that these guys have. You're not just plucking somebody out of an era, putting them here and like, oh, well, LeBron is spending $1 million on his body. We're going to pit him against Larry Bird, who's playing $50, for his training, and it's going to be equal. No. Those guys are going to have access to the same nutritional science, the same recovery science, the same training. And now, if you put them in this era, they'll be fine. They were
playing 82 games back then. Hey,
They would
there wasn't
still
no playing
shine.
65 games in a season unless you were like, bleeding or dying.
Right. So it's so unfair to be like, oh, we're going to take this 2023, who's accessed all of this recovery training, and we're going to pit them against the 1952 Toronto Raptors. And of course they're going to win. No, those guys is going to have the same access, to nutrition, whatever. They're going to level up as well. So if Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and these guys play today, took advantage of the same training that these guys are taking, they would be just as good. They would still be superstars.
And you saw Rudy Gobert and Victor Wembanyama give the USA Fit, Spam, and company. What are they going to do against the Dream? Hakeem Olajuwon, the Dream shake all his arsenal of moves, and then when he sits, you got Patrick or the Admiral.
Right.
And those all three of those guys are rebounding monsters. And Olajuwon and Ewing were two of the best shot blockers the game ever saw. And then, oh, by the way, they have Charles Barkley and Karl Malone at the power forward spot.
Right.
I don't know. To me, and that's not even talking about the greatness of Michael Jordan. I hadn't even brought up Michael yet. He's also, as much as I dislike him, probably the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
I don't see it. But again, I admit bias because that's my era team. So, but I will say unequivocally, I think the 92 team is the best collection that will ever be assembled of basketball players on one team. They just minus Christian Laettner. I mean, he was the token, but everybody else is just incredible. I mean, there are other players who are up there with that team, but to have all of those players together in one spot, like Shaq probably belongs up there. Kobe probably belongs. Tim Duncan. You can pull two or three guys, but I mean, all of those guys are just, top 75 best that ever play the game.
Yeah, and I'm not taking anything away from you. Think about the top players on this team. Stephen Curry,
LeBron,
KD, AD. I think they were all top 75 players, but there's a drop off after that. There was very little drop off on that Dream team. Say that again.
Tyrese Halliburton.
Right. There was very little drop off on the Dream team.
I mean, John Stockton's an afterthought on the Dream team.
I forgot about Stockton. I forgot about Stockton. Yeah, like there's no drop off.
Let's put it this way: Isaiah Thomas couldn't make the Dream team.
Yeah,
I guess Christian Laettner got a spot, but I'm just saying that for the spots that were available, because they wanted to have that one college player, Thomas, no joke. Isaiah Thomas, no joke on the court, couldn't make the team over Clyde Drexler and Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and John Stockton.
Yeah. Should have. They said there was some politics.
Conspiracy. I think you can make a case for everybody that went except maybe Drexler. I mean, as far as the guards are concerned, I don't. If you want to say that you wanted to put him over Chris Mullin, I mean, I can see that, but they, different positions. Mullin was more of a small forward. And with Larry Bird not having the best back in the world, it's good to have Mullin, Pippen, and Bird. Oh man, that's
a hard one. All right, anything else before we get out of here?
Thank you so much for having us on, Queen. Great show for a Monday night. I can't wait for Thursday. It's going to be awesome. Y'all go check out Ron, still Knick fans. He's great people. Always has a good show. And we'll see you again on Thursday. Thank you, chat. You're always keeping it live for us.
Fire.
Salute to the chat.
Remember to hit the like button on the way out. Y'all been real cheap with the likes tonight. Nothing,
They're out of practice.
That day was doing the chat. He said he can't do the chat and the likes. So he has to coordinate, you know.
All right. Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure to be here and hanging out with you and talking about the Knicks.
Yeah. Until next time, fam.
Peace.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Oh, sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Dope soul.
Where you at? Where you at?
Dope